Welcome back to Tech Tuesday. I'm your host, Jordan Evans, coming back with another exciting topic about tech, senior living, and everything in between. So today we are talking about the last mile, and I had to do a lot of research for this article, for this episode, understanding what is the last mile, which refers to the last leg of internet infrastructure, like what gets internet from the cables into your home. And there's two different types of, so I'll just explain. There's two different types of this last leg. You have wireless, which is typically 5G, and you have it on your phone. There are sometimes modems that have access to 5G. And then there's wired. So there's fiber optic, there's copper, and there's coax cables. And so getting into this conversation about the last mile and all the things about it is my friend Mike Hughes from United Church Homes, and Mike is the Chief Transformation and Innovation Officer. So let's bring him on. Mike, thanks so much for coming on and helping us talk about this topic. So Chief Transformation and Innovation Officer, that sounds like a really fun job. What does that entail?
I didn't choose the title, but I'm just so delighted to, first of all, Jordan, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
And just been absolutely delighted and really engaged with the work at United Church Homes as their first Chief Transformation and Innovation Officer. And in short, that's really just to see how we can leverage the power of digital to make us more efficient, to support our growth, and to share our good works with the world.
Now, digital, that entails, digital is such a big word. It's only 5 letters, but it's still a big word. Yeah. What does that entail? It's not more than 5 letters, but obviously I'm not good at math. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of senior living operators are really just looking at kind of the reframing of their business model, one where, we're not seeing the sort of traditional demand for communities of our type, and in searching for growth opportunities, we are essentially exploring moving from, I think, a centralized business model where you're sort of working within the confines of your campus to a decentralized model, where you're now taking all the skills that you have and supporting the needs of people that need it, and you're moving into the community. So, what does that look like in terms of digital, in terms of technology? How do we scale, especially given the workforce issues? So the shop I run at United Church Homes, called UCH Transform, is kind of split into 3 areas. The first is really around piloting, running our incubator program and ensuring that anything that we do test within our business has a beginning, middle, and end, and is accountable to a variety of measures and other things we know, so that we're successful. I run our human-centered design practice. We're really embracing human-centered design. We have to. We really need to get in with our potential customers, understand their changing wants and needs. And the third is really looking at our digital properties, our website. Our marketing department, reports up through me. But the through line here is digital in terms of the need to support technologies, to support the scaling of our work, to meet people where they are. And people do not want to move from a smart home to a dumb home. But, as I think you suggested, it all really just depends on the internet. The internet is like water. It is an essential thing that we need to have in order to support the needs of an aging population.
So to kind of dig deeper into this, I didn't even know that there were different types of like this last leg. Like I didn't know that a majority, like a large part of the US depends on copper cables to bring internet into their home or their business. And then because I thought, 5G and then fiber optic. I forgot the coax cable, but so the best one that you want to have is the fiber optic or the wireless, and that supports your high internet speeds. So this is the one question I had to ask. What is the best internet speed that you want to have?
Oh,
Like
geez,
the broadband that's broadband, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to. I mean, you want to have. I mean, fiber is the new standard. So when you're looking at supporting at least our properties, we want to plan for the future because really, generally, these things, the funding for these things, do not come around very often. And if we are going to be doing it, like with any one of our new builds, then we're going to be doing fiber to every single door, just because it's the thing that we are most predictive of in terms of that future demand, the higher internet speeds, the streaming speeds, the things that people are getting used to, right now. So it's got to be fiber to every single door. I think the challenges for our business is that we have a lot of legacy properties, and we have about 100 different properties owned and managed. About 75% of those as low income housing for the elderly. Elderly is the wrong word, sorry, but for older people. Um, but I would like to do tons of stuff in those buildings. We're going to be doing pilots with Amazon Smart Properties and so on, but it doesn't succeed unless you've got that Wi-Fi connectivity or that any sort of an internet connectivity. And we estimate that in our affordables, you may have, I don't know, 20-25% of people with any ability to go online. Maybe it's as high as 40. Not a consistent platform. Some people use phones, some people use tablets, some people use this or that. And so communicating to our residents, scaling, having, because we do have our service coordinator program through HUD. That is a person that can be available at affordable housing to help serve the needs of the residents. But to scale that work, we need to go digital. But I can't do that unless I have a reliable Wi-Fi signal in my buildings and then a consistent platform to use, because I can't use 5 different, I can't communicate to an iPhone here or Android there, and only 20% or 40% of the people can download an app. I actually have to give them equipment to make a consistent platform. But to do that, you need broadband connectivity. And there is a lot of good news around that, Jordan. I mean, the Jobs and Infrastructure Act money is hitting this year. A lot of the states are going to use that for a lot of rural.
Talk more about that for those of us that have not studied the politics around this idea of net neutrality.
Yeah, so the Biden administration essentially saw this need and really integrated it into the Jobs and Infrastructure Act that was passed in 2021. And I'm not going to get everything right, by the way. And I think there's BEAD funding and things like that. But essentially, there is multi-billion dollars set aside for rural broadband connectivity. And then a smaller amount, I think in the low hundreds of millions, that is meant for digital equity. And digital equity means the connectivity of that last mile stuff, like schools, libraries, and low income housing for older Americans is considered a priority site for this investment. The challenge, though, is that it's all state administered funding, and every single state is doing it a different way. So for me to say, hey man, I've got shovel ready projects ready for you, Ohio and Mississippi and Florida and Georgia and Indiana and Michigan and wherever, I got to go through 15 different ways of doing it, or 14 different ways of doing it. And it's really tough just with a small staff and limited resources to kind of bring that to the top. So it's been a little challenging. But on the positive side, the money is starting to go out this year. And hopefully with all of that being said, they are going to start to look for these shovel-ready projects, and we're going to welcome them with open arms.
Just to kind of bring everyone to the same page, not bringing fiber to that front door is actually a pretty big thing to tackle. I was looking at it. 42% of the US has access to fiber. That's not a lot. Half of our,
you're right.
so most people don't have access to fiber. And I was looking into why that's true. And internet service providers are incentivized to run fiber to more densely populated areas because they're not going to get paid by anyone to run this. It's like, building a building. You build the building so that you can have your shop in there. It's, you can, so they need to run fiber so that they can serve their customers higher internet speeds. I pulled up a map and I know that, I pulled up this map, and if you want to just show this map, Jada, this is a map of of parts of the United States that have access to speeds 250 megabytes per second or above. Now, according to the FCC, you actually, so they say, a nursing home only really needs access to 10 megabytes per second, whereas a hospital system needs access to 1,000. Now, I personally believe that that's ageist, because I mean, it's just an ageist assumption to believe that a nursing home, well, only a few, and their justification was only a few people are really going to be using internet, and you don't really need access in a nursing home to real-time data and all of the devices that really need those higher internet speeds. And that's ageist. It's completely not true. And this worries me, because 250 megabytes per second isn't on a scale. It's fast, but it's not the fastest.
No, and hats off to North Dakota, by the way, because it seems like from that map, they've got like the entire state covered with broadband. So I don't know what they did over there, but that's pretty crazy. Maybe they're using like the Starlink system, or maybe they've just done that. And so just to kind of pick up on the conversation, Jordan, that the Jobs and Infrastructure Act money is meant to incentivize carriers to run that rural connectivity. There's a little bit too many stories out there about students having to drive to a McDonald's and sort of be in the McDonald's parking lot to submit their math homework and things like that. That stuff has to end. So that's why you got this sort of gargantuan amount towards that connectivity, so make sure we can improve that coverage. But then you sort of get to, okay, well, then there's digital equity, and net neutrality. It's treated, internet should be treated as an essential service. But then when you talk about digital equity, then we start getting into that conversation about lower income neighborhoods, housing for the elderly, things of that nature. And I would say, to your nursing home point, maybe that's right now, but not in the future.
Right.
We are moving towards a managed care future. A really good example of this is CMS, Centers for Medicare Services, recently announced something called the TEAMS model. And that TEAMS model is going to be a mandatory capitated payment arrangement where the CMS is essentially only going to pay for certain surgeries with a lump sum amount. And that lump sum amount will cover the hospital fees, the surgery, and all post-acute care, which means the nursing home, the home health, the rehabilitative services, and so on. And I understand what they're getting at. They did the same thing in Sweden. Like here, a hip operation costs about $50,000. In Sweden, it costs about $9,000. And they're making money because essentially what they did was they put this arrangement out there so they could find the people in the country that were really ninjas at hip operations, and then they got all the work, right? So for common surgeries, they're going to get this capitated amount. It's going to be 25% of U.S. hospitals that will be chosen to be in this program. It is mandatory. Whether you're in a value-based care or not. So you could have a rural hospital somewhere suddenly saying, okay, now I get a $40,000 lump sum payment. Now I got to really, and if this person comes back to me, I can't charge fee for service anymore. I'm going to be eating the $12,000, $14,000 cost of the readmission, which means now a hospital has to pay attention to the post-acute side of things. They need to pick what CMS is calling them collaborators, because CMS loves special terms. But that's going to be the future. So anything the hospital is seeing or requiring from a data exchange standpoint, that's going to be required of its partners. So the investment the hospital will need to make will be and their downstream partners to ensure that they are well coordinated, that they are sharing data real time, because any fail point in the system is going to be costed back to the hospital. So that's going to require a lot more digital integration between hospitals and post-acute collaborators.
And that's going to require a majority of those collaborators to have access to high-speed internet, so that when Miss Susan is having a spike in something because of a medication she's taking, like, we can know that instantly.
Well, and
And
it's more of home health. I would say that there's skilled nursing and there's also home health, Jordan. So I think the majority of people that are discharged from hospitals go to home health versus going to skilled nursing. Because, the hospital's job is to stabilize that person after a procedure to the point where they can decide on the next best point of care. Skilled nursing is going to be useful for more complex patients. But then you have people going home, and they're going to be going home to any type of Wi-Fi connectivity you can find. I mean, everyone is talking about remote patient monitoring, and that's just sort of it's becoming commoditized. But all of that stuff requires a reliable Wi-Fi signal, in order to have that work. And it's all driving back to the workforce shortages as well. You simply do not have enough home health aides to jump in cars and go out to visit people. You need technology to help people decide, I've got 100 people on census. Who do I jump in the car and go see first? You need to have some ability to reach into individual homes with some sort of a sense of, are people in trouble or not? And what we're exploring at United Church Homes is using things like an Alexa platform to do that, because the power of your voice sends it to action. It's cheapish. It's ubiquitous enough to be reliable. So that's what. But again, it always stops with the Wi-Fi. It all falls apart if you don't have the Wi-Fi.
The Wi-Fi.
Or the cellular signal. That's the other thing too. You can always embed this stuff with cell stuff, but then you have to look at the coverage of the cell provider.
Yeah, because not all you can have great internet and still live in a dead zone.
Yeah, especially if you're wedded into, let's say, a T-Mobile versus a Verizon or an AT&T. I mean, we've got a test going with an amazing smartwatch that works on cellular. It's T-Mobile, and it works on floor 2 and 3 of my building. It does not work on floor 1.
Oh,
so that's you can get on other carriers. You can do, but that's going to be a future. Is you're going to need to play around with the carriers as well as with the just getting the Wi-Fi signal to begin with.
So, to bring it back to practical takeaways that anyone watching this can go, okay, wow, did not know this was a problem. Let me go check in with my rural communities. What are the first things you do to assess whether or not you have a great connectivity in your community, or what resources do you go to? Like, I'm watching this, crap. Okay, what do I do?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you want to do is, the FCC has broadband coverage maps. So you can go to the FCC website and you can look to see what the coverage is. It's also really important to, if you are an operator of a low-income affordable housing community for older Americans, on the FCC map, if it shows your building there, make sure it is up to date in terms of the number of units you have in that building. That it's designated on the FCC map as a multi-unit dwelling, and there you go. Awesome, somebody's on the ball and got that. So you can then petition to have that designation changed if you find that the FCC is incorrect. The next thing you can do is really just connect yourself with the State Broadband Coalition. Every state has a broadband coalition that is meant to design a plan for the use of these jobs in Infrastructure Act monies. And again, the majority of interest that we find is in the rural carrier stuff. But then, there is the digital equity stuff. There should be someone who is tasked with the digital equity lead in each of these states. Put yourself on their radar, get to know them. Just say, hey, I am here. These are our properties. Here's the current state. At United Church Homes, we've done an analysis of all of our properties. And guess what? We do have internet connectivity at many of them, but it's only for the manager's office. So a lot of the funding that we would seek under the Jobs and Infrastructure Act money is not so much to get a signal to our front door. It's to invest in the repeaters and a boosted signal and so on, to carry that signal from the manager's office to reach every single one of my units, and to accommodate a broadband strength that will be a platform for my Alexa units. So it's not just getting the connectivity to the front door. You can also talk to your carrier, like a Verizon or a Comcast or a Spectrum or whoever you use, but just be cautious with the contract terms, because many of these carriers will say, yes, absolutely, we are pleased to give you the equipment to boost that signal, to get fiber to every single one of those doors, but they may ask for a contract that might be, I will make this up, a 10-year contract. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, Matt, I am not signing a 10-year contract with anybody. I am not, because what can happen in 10 years with broadband, wireless? I mean, heck, Starlink satellite systems.
Okay, so someone mentioned Starlink to me last week, and it sounded like something, and I was like, maybe I'll mention it in the show. If Mike brings it up, we'll talk about it. What is Starlink? It sounds like something out of Star Trek. It sounds crazy. What is Starlink?
Well, it's an Elon Musk thing, so that's why it sounds like it's something out of Star Trek, or that's his vibe. But I mean, and I'm not an expert in this, but from what I understand, it essentially uses a satellite network to pulse or make it to carry that Wi-Fi signal down to an area using a network of satellites. And we see this also in emerging countries. And in fact, I think some of the biggest innovations in e-commerce are in countries that are predominantly Wi-Fi enabled, payments, everything like that. But they use satellite networks to kind of, reach people, and I think even when Ukraine was first, invaded, they gave them Starlink so they could use a coordinated internet signal. So that is certainly something that could happen. I have not heard a lot about it actually happening. It's all really just been going to our carriers and just saying to the carriers, okay, you guys get in your trucks and string some fiber out into areas that don't have it.
Well, I feel like we've all learned so much. Mike, you run a show with the United Church Homes.
I do. Yeah, I know. Thank you for letting me pitch. So we have The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series. You can find it at abundantagingpodcast.com. You can also find us on YouTube at United Church Homes. So please subscribe, because my mom's getting lonely as the only subscriber. But we run shows just like this. We talk to venture capitalists, entrepreneurs, people that have embraced human-centered design principles, and also our mission of ending ageism through our Ruth Frost Parker Center for Abundant Aging. So we have an annual symposium in October, but our agenda is to end ageism. And I know that that's something that you hold near and dear as well, Jordan.
That is something I love. Yes. So if we can, follow, help, definitely push you over there and, help us combat ageism. I think ageism is something that touches everywhere, even tech, as we just learned from the FCC's, recommendations for nursing homes.
To quote the great Bob Kramer, who you should have as a guest on your show. He's been great on ageism is a bias against your future self.
That's right. Well, Mike, thank you so much. Chief Transformation and Innovation Officer at United Church Homes. This has been another episode of Tech Tuesday. We are here every Tuesday at 1:30 live on all platforms, including our website at Senior Living Foresight. So thanks so much for joining us, Mike. And